Well, hello. I am Matt Williamson. Welcome. Spread the word. At Williamson NFL on Twitter. Give me a follow if you haven't. Check out this on YouTube or download it wherever. Go to the site and you'll find it. Whatever. Spread the word. It is Super Bowl week. I'm recording this on Wednesday, but I'll probably give you a Super Bowl pick at the end of the week and spend a couple minutes on the game, but I'm not going to dig into that super heavily. We're here to talk Steelers. The offseason's in swing. They had some Cooper Kupp talk. There's a lot of receivers, I think, that could be on the move. But as we did last week, I just finished putting together my final stats for the Steeler defense. And we did the offense in kind of a 3-part series last week. I want to do part 1 of the defense. This might extend into next week, but I'm going to go through a lot of these bullet points, maybe 10-ish bullet points per podcast, give you my thoughts on top of that. But before I do, when we did this for the offense, it was very revealing, and it's also revealing for the defense, of course, but the offense one was more telling. But I do think that if you just looked at all those numbers I gave you a ton of data. And it's up my alley. I think that's a great tool. It's not the only tool I use, but it's a great tool. But I think the offense smell test, watching it for 17 games, not just the last month or so, 17 games, was better than a lot of those numbers indicate. Again, I think you guys know I'm a numbers guy. I'm a stats dork. But if you would just listen to those 3 podcasts, you might be like, man, this was like one of the worst 3 or 4 offenses in the league. And I don't believe that to be true. I mean, I think it was disappointing. I think there was issues and it crumbled and all that stuff, but I don't think it was as bad as the Browns whenever they didn't have Winston in there or, some of these awful, awful offenses. But anyway, here we go with the defense. Steelers gave up 5.4 yards per play. Only 11 defenses were better. Not great. And a lot of that was down the stretch, to be honest with you. You would think it should be better. 11 defenses were better. So I wouldn't say only. That's not terrible. 5-4 on the road, or 5-5 on the road, 5-4 at home. So there wasn't a big split with that necessarily either. Teams didn't run at the Steelers very much. They saw a run call just a smidge under 40% of the snaps, which means they were pass plays, obviously. Only 5 defenses saw a lower percentage of run plays. And that's despite playing the Eagles and the Ravens twice. They're the run heaviest teams in the league. So teams chose to throw against the Steelers. So if we really dig into stats per drive, they allow 1.88 points per drive, 7th best. 30.7 yards per drive, 11th best. Only 6 defenses were better than the 0.21 touchdowns per drive allowed. And only the Seahawks, Dolphins, and Browns forced more 3 and outs per drive than Pittsburgh. That might surprise you, Now, that didn't happen a lot late in the year. But again, we're talking about a 17-game season. And only 3 defenses were better at forcing 3 and outs. The Steelers' defense allowed a set of downs to convert into a new set of downs or a touchdown at a 69% rate. Okay, you would think that's high, but it isn't. It's 7th best. 3 and outs are hard to come by, obviously. I think we all can figure that part out. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number 1 source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA. Obviously, we've got the Super Bowl around the corner. Head to BetOnline today to get on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. So a lot of this I find really fascinating, like we just talked about with what the defense run pass splits were, is unlike offense, obviously, how do teams over the course of 7 games choose to attack you? You know, what do they think your weaknesses are? And opponents put 11 personnel. I hope I have to explain this to you again, but it's 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers. They came at the Steelers in 11 at a 62.5% clip. Only 6 defenses saw any personnel grouping at a higher rate. So Steelers got a really high percentage of 11. And again, that's playing the Ravens twice, who is like the lowest team in the league in 11. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to get the Steelers in nickel and dime. They want to challenge the corner depth. They want to get Roberts off the field. They want to get a nose off the field. That's what teams decided to do. In turn, the Steelers gave up 228 passing yards per game. That was 8th most. Not great. And again, I think corner is a huge offseason need that people don't seem to be addressing enough. So how about this? Speaking of passing yards allowed, they gave up the 7th most passing yards per game to quarterbacks and allowed multiple passing touchdowns in 5 of their last 6 games. That probably doesn't surprise you. In their last 7 games, the Steelers allowed 7.5 yards per attempt. That was 25th. And a 5.7 touchdown rate, which was also 25th. However, before those last 7 games, they allowed 6.9 yards per attempt, which was 12th best, and a 2.7 touchdown rate, which was 5th best. So like everything, the end was much uglier than the beginning. But the level of competition was a lot higher too. But that's a two-headed coin as well. The offenses they played to start the season weren't that great, looking back. This is another one. They allowed a league-high yards per game, 124.1, and the 7th most touchdowns, 13, to receivers aligned out wide. Like you would think, boy, we're going to attack Beanie Bishop like crazy. We're going to really attack the slot. And there were times that happened. Don't get me wrong. Like Beanie Bishop's not the answer at slot. I would like to see him maybe make team next year. But Jackson was a much bigger problem than people realize. I keep going back to what a need a true outside corner opposite Porter, who I don't think is the problem at all, really is. I mean, league high yards per game to receivers aligned out wide. And to receivers in general, the wide receiver position, they were the 8th most receiving yards allowed. So, not great. This will be where I'm going to end this. But in terms, again, of where the production is going, they gave up the 2nd most catches to opposing tight ends. 106 catches allowed to opposing tight ends. And I threw that out on Twitter yesterday after I dug it up. And a lot of people wrote back, they've never defended the tight end well since Tomlin's been there. I think that's a little unfair. And a lot of people are like, Gronkowski used to just rip the Steelers apart. That bothered me. Because yes, you're right. But Gronkowski's the best tight end that ever lived and ripped everybody apart. I don't want to hear in the 60s, yeah, but they can't stop Jim Brown, or boy, Jerry Rice did a number on them every time they played him. Yeah, he's the best that's ever done it. I firmly believe that. That's just kind of a side note, but I got a lot of that back on Twitter when I said this about tight ends. But still, that's far from okay either. 2nd most catches allowed to the tight end position. And they played some good ones, but they didn't play Gronk every week, all the time, So, and I think there is some merit to, since Tomlin's been here, they have not been great against tight ends. I'm not going to argue opposite that. But I just got a kick out of, yeah, Gronkowski used to kill him. Yeah, he did. Yeah, of course he did. All right, everyone. I'll be back. Probably go to part 2 of this defensive breakdown, more of the passing game stuff, and then we'll finish it up with the run game in general. Probably going to be a 3-parter. But you guys like the offensive one, and defensive one is rosier. Let's just put it that way. There's a lot more positive stats in this one than the offensive side of the ball. All right, guys, take care.